I think people get really intimidated by the idea of making biscuits from scratch. But today we're gonna see that the prep for a homemade buttermilk biscuit will take you literally less than 10 minutes, especially if you're using your food processor. So let's get started. We're gonna make the greatest homemade buttermilk biscuits of all time. In the bowl of a food processor fitted with a blade attachment, you're gonna add 2 1/4 cups of all-purpose flour, 1 tablespoon of granulated sugar, 2 teaspoons of baking powder, a 1/2 teaspoon of baking soda, and 1 teaspoon of fine sea salt. Pop on the lid and pulse that until those ingredients are combined. If you don't have a food processor, you can just use a large mixing bowl and a whisk to combine your dry ingredients. Then you're gonna cut up 3/4 cup of very cold, unsalted butter into little tiny cubes and sprinkle those over the dry mix. Pop on the lid and pulse a few more times to cut the butter into the flour mixture. If you aren't using a food processor, just grab a pastry cutter and cut that butter right into those dry ingredients. Drizzle in 3/4 cup of buttermilk with your food processor running. Now again, if you don't have a food processor, you can still make this recipe. You'll just want to grab yourself a wooden spoon and stir in that buttermilk. As soon as all the buttermilk has been added, you're going to start pulsing just until all of the dough comes together. Transfer the dough to a lightly floured work surface and pat it into a rectangle. Then you're gonna fold the sides of the dough over and onto itself just like you're folding a piece of paper. And you're gonna do this a couple times. Then you're gonna pat the dough into a rectangle again, this time about 1 inch thick. Cut out as many biscuits as you can, and then if needed, you can rework that dough up to 2 more times to get a couple more biscuits out of the deal. Place the biscuits on a baking sheet lined with either parchment paper or a silicone baking mat and bake for 10 to 13 minutes in a preheated 450-degree Fahrenheit oven. Once those biscuits are sky high and the tops are golden brown, you can pull them from the oven and let them cool for about 5 to 10 minutes before digging in. We love making these buttermilk biscuits for breakfast, but breakfast is not the only time for homemade biscuits. Biscuits are perfect at dinner time. In the South, there's actually no wrong time to eat a biscuit.